Chytridiomycosis Relinquished is the debut full-length album from Leeds, England-based death doom metal band Slimelord. And I would say their style is maybe avant-garde death doom. It's maybe just death metal. It's something that is surrealistic and hallucinatory in its aspect in every case. So this is the originally a side project between folks from Cryptic Shift. They started it up much later than they did their Cryptic Shift, and I originally checked them out, not really understanding that like their original goal was something closer or inspired by the central point of something like Cavern Core or Morbid Angel of the sludgier aspects. It was atmospheric death metal the way that I see it, and it was something that um, maybe a sound that was less common at the time. It was easier to play. They were having fun with these songs. But they really didn't have a knack for any of it that was all that interesting to me until they hit that third EP, which was maybe more of a promotional item than the sort of fun they were having with the other ones. It was more effective in its atmospheric build, the strange guitar noises, and its more atmospherically built rhythms. They weren't quite making the shift yet to what we found here on this remarkable album, but you'll see that's the most direct provenance for what they're doing on this record is Insurmountable Peril. So definitely make sure you listen to that EP and see that that was foreshadowing for a lot of what was happening here, but they've made a leap onto this record, and for me this is maybe one of the more exciting surprises to have found this year. So let's jump into a song to get just a little bit of a sense of what this album sounds like. I think a lot of the times I focus on a lot of the more practical aspects of music, but in the case of a band like Slimelord, there was and it's important to convey the experience of discovering and listening to them because that's not something I often harp on too readily. First impressions can be messy and purposeless in the long run. But I found that this was like a almost a psychedelic experience. It was difficult to follow a lot of what they were doing. It wasn't at all what I expected. I saw that this band was compared to groups like Tomb Mold. That couldn't be further from the truth. This is a very different thing. But you might catch, well, maybe there's some immolation influence to their movement. Maybe it's the way that they stray chords and exaggerate rhythms. There's a little bit of something like Portal or Disembowelment or, Nivomus, somewhere in between. But really, I had to pull back into my head and think, there's really something kind of Panthemonium or Alchemist about this record. That early progressive or surreal death metal feeling from the early 90s, where we get pure abstraction or just unpredictable results from movement and play with rhythm. And that's presented in a mid pace. That's kind of an exciting thing. Presented with blast beats and all that. Maybe we're getting more in the territory of some of my favorite bands, like I said, Disembowelment and whatnot. So I don't know how valuable that insight is, but I couldn't tell what I was listening to, and it sounded like a different band at every turn. Not so much, not in a practical sense, but they were taking those unpredictable turns. They were hitting on the deep atmospheric sections and pieces. I thought I understood where they're going, but like I say here, the tectonic plates are always shifting on this record. There's always some sense of coming storm. There's a different movement ready to happen around every corner. So it's not a very contained record. It's not, it doesn't feel fully jammed, but it does feel like there are a lot of emergent and finessed points that were built from jamming together and having a good time. So it makes for a very entertaining record that sounds like they're enjoying putting it together. It sounds like they're all extremes were welcome. And it just so happens, records like Gateways to Annihilation and whatnot kind of do help direct the more extreme side of the band. And I think if you're a fan of anything from Jar of Kingdom to an early Portal record, you'll appreciate the dissonant turns of the record. You'll appreciate what some of the leads do in creating tension and movement. There's a lot that is very much what I would consider like a psychedelic death metal experience that is still death doom at heart, maybe more in like the Crypts style of death doom, where it's not exactly doom riffs, but they're in there here and there, and It's something I wouldn't like to prescribe entirely. I think this is such an experience. It's such a show of how much these guys can put into an album, like we saw with the most recent Cryptic Shift record, where the more attention that they put into something, the more we get an authentic result, something that is technical, maybe a little progressive, but still has that feeling, that exciting underground extreme metal push to it that doesn't feel entirely derivative. It feels like this record. I think the compliment I give this record at the end of the review is this doesn't feel like a side project anymore. This doesn't feel like a fun thing or a one off so much as it feels like or something pretty valuable was forged throughout this record. And I think the challenge is, I guess, defining what that is and communicating that to other people. And so there's an organic touch to it that is allowed to be dissonant, to touch upon doom, upon blasting, upon technicality, upon progressive movements, catchier. It's catchy but amorphous at the same time. And for me, that's some of my favorite death metal is in that style. So add in a great cover art and all that. And this is, I mean, it might just be the album of the month. There's a lot of really great records coming out in March, coming up here pretty soon. I think this might be the front runner so far. It's just, for me, a record like this is endlessly entertaining. I know that it's will last on my playlist forever because it's weird. It does a lot to catch my attention. It's unexpected at a lot of its turns, and I love the production values. Or it's appropriately a little bit muddy, but it's still pretty crisp. I think Subterranean Watchtower always balances that just right, and it fits the band. It doesn't feel like just a horrendous album so much as a Slimelord album, and I think that's the right choice here, is to balance it the way that they did, keep it a little bit sludgy per their intent, and yeah, this really stood out to me listening over the bulk of March releases. This is the one that was like, just absolutely, this is above average, and I think a thing that I really hope they stick with and we get more of in the future. That's a very high recommendation for me. Go ahead and check out that when it releases this Friday on March 8th, and go ahead and read the review if you'd like more of my thoughts.